The following is an exclusive national high-definition broadcast of Indiana University's Little 500 on HDNet.
The Women's Little 500, a tradition at Indiana University since 1988. It's a competition defined by teamwork, endurance, precision, and often survival. May the strongest women be crowned champions. Welcome to the heart of Big Ten country. We're on the campus of Indiana University in Bloomington, Indiana, where today HDNet presents the 20th running of the Women's Little 500, sponsored by Grainger. Almost 10,000 fans will pack Bill Armstrong Stadium here on the campus of Indiana University. Fans have started to gather here for the last 2 or 3 hours to root on their various sororities, residence halls, and independent cycling teams. Today here at the Little 500 starts the world's greatest college weekend, a race that attracts national attention and has for 57 years, and more importantly, contributes more than $1 million, or has since its inception, to Indiana University working students, because that's the background that the founder had. And I think it would stun people to find out that this is actually an intramural event. Hello again, everybody. Judd Surratt, glad to be joined by former U.S. Olympian Dylan Casey, a former teammate of Lance Armstrong on the United States Postal Service team, along with two-time Little 500 All-Star and Writers Council President Jason Sonnenborn. This is one of the deepest and best women's fields they have had in the 20 years of the race.
Yeah, there's a lot of teams today that can win the race, and that's what's going to make for a very, very exciting race. Kappa Gamma, our returning champion, is in the race. Teter on the pole position with arguably the best rider in the race, Sarah Ricci. It's just going to be fun to watch. I think there's a lot of parity. It just goes to show how hard these women have worked this year for the Little 500.
And Dylan, for people who've never had a chance to see this event, this is unique. The track is unique, the bike is unique, and these are all amateur riders, and it's something to watch from start to finish, because at any given moment, we could find something pivotal happen in the race.
You're absolutely right, Judd. I mean, this is a one-day event that really takes a whole year to prepare for, and these ladies have been working really hard, and although they're amateur cyclists, really today they are true professionals, and they're going to do everything they can to win the race. We're going to see some great action today.
Well, this is the 20th running of the women's race. It's the 57th running of the Little 500 overall to start the world's greatest college weekend. Let's take a look back at the history of this historic race.
Little 500 is one of IU's biggest traditions. It's been going on for over 50 years now.
The Little 500 is really an interesting event because it's an intramural event, but it's unlike any other intramural event around.
Indiana University has a really strong intramural program, whether that be basketball or football or whatever, but that really pales in comparison to the Little 500.
Honestly, I didn't know much about it coming into school as a freshman, but first time I was here at the race, my freshman year, it just kind of encaptured me, the whole atmosphere, and just seeing like how much work and dedication these riders put into it.
It was started by a guy named Howie Wilcox. He noticed the high population of students riding bikes around campus, and he decided it'd be a good idea to start a bike race for it.
I'm starting to get a bigger grasp rather than it's just, you know, a fun weekend or out there to ride a bike. Like, it's an amazing event. It raises a ton of money for scholarships. They give out like $34,000 scholarships every year, so it's huge, and it's awesome to be really a part of the history, because it really is a defining moment in IU's history.
The culture of Little 500 IU is like so big. I mean, like I said, it's more than a bike race. I mean, we do this all year round. And the people out here aren't really our competitors, they're more of our friends.
There's a lot of camaraderie involved in the Little 500 race day. You can see just all the fans in the stands, 18, 20,000 people, just all the different colors and everything. It's really special.
Well, it's really special to hear the riders today, the current riders, recognize the history and the tradition that comes with this race. It's just been led by tremendous people like Howdy Wilcox and Bill Armstrong, and this is an exciting, pivotal day for the women. It marks the 20th anniversary of the first women's race, so it's just exciting to hear.
Yeah, you know, Jason, we got into town last night, and today we were down on Kirkwood hanging out with all of the students and the parents and the alumni, and you could feel the energy. Everybody is funneling into town for this momentous weekend, and we can feel the energy right behind us as all the students start to fill the stands and the athletes are getting ready for the race. I mean, it's just, you can feel the energy. We're going to have a great race today.
Guys, there are many talented women to watch today, but maybe none more so than Sarah Ricci, who set a new ITT record this year. She'll be riding for the Teter team. Let's take a closer look at Sarah Ricci.
I'm Sarah Ricci, and I'm a junior from Zionsville, Indiana. This year's Spring Series consisted of 4 events. First was quals, and we set the pole as a team, which was a wonderful accomplishment. The second was a 4-lap individual time trial, in which I set the all-time record, and I beat it by just over a second, and I felt great. It was a good challenge individually. And then we had Missing Out, which is basically a sprint race, and I also won that. And finally, we had a team pursuit, which is basically using all 4 members of your team in a 12-lap race, and we got 5th in that. When I set the record, it was pretty an amazing feeling. At first, I didn't even know what happened, and I knew I had tried my best and done what I could. And then it was kind of just relief that I was able to accomplish my goal, and from there, it's in the history books. It was just a wonderful feeling and great accomplishment.
Hey, good luck on Saturday.
I first heard of the Little 500 probably when I was a senior in high school, and I didn't have any intention on riding the Little 500 or racing it, but when I came to IU, there's really no other way to do it. If you want to ride your bike, you're going to be on a team, and you're going to meet some fantastic girls, and from then on, it's just participating in the events and having a great time and learning to really love the race. Race weekend is very intense. The coolest part about it is not necessarily at the track, but going around to classes, and everyone's in a good mood and everyone's happy and they're all looking forward to the events. And for me, it's just a time where I have to relax and focus, and it's, you know, our big event, so I can't relax too much and I have to keep my eye on the prize and just hope it goes smoothly. My freshman year, we actually won the Little 500. I had 3 wonderful seniors as I was a freshman, and so that was a big challenge and something I really wanted to live up for them. Second year around, of course, I'm the last one left, so we had 3 girls who hadn't ridden before. We qualified 12th and we finished 12th, so we didn't lose any places, which was a success. I have a wonderful team. The cool thing about it is that all 4 of us are from a different class, so we range from senior to freshman, and so we're really diverse, all different majors, all different personalities, and we really just take care of each other. We all have our strengths. There's some of us that are sprinters and some of us that can sit on the bike and go forever, and it's really when we pull all of us together that we get a great team and that we can really perform well. I think our team's going to do great in the race. It's really going to come down to how we act together as a team, and if we could just keep focused and ride our best race.
Well, guys, Caroline Andrew of Kappa Kappa Gamma said that Sarah Ricci in particular has blossomed into a beast on the track, and she is just a tiny little thing. Teter will be one of the teams to watch. They're going to be on the pole today. Jason, another team to watch that qualified second, Kappa Delta. They finished second last year.
Yeah, it's the thing about second, Judd, you know, they can taste that victory. They were so close last year. Kappa Kappa Gamma just nipped them out. They're coached by Norm Hughes, also the coach of Alpha Tau Omega on the men's side. ATO picked up their first win last year. Norm knows how to win. He's going to try to transfer that over to KD.
Cycledelics, also another team to watch, but also Kappa and Alpha Theta, Dylan. This is a team with a storied tradition, and they're a team, and talking to some of them before the race, they feel they don't have one single all-star, but they have an all-star team.
That's right, Chud. You know, they're referred to as the Thetas, and they're in the all-white kit. And they have a long, very victorious history here with 4 wins. They're the best all-time team here at the Little 500. And what's interesting about that is that they have a very well-rounded team, and they're the team that's going to come out and really make the race right from the start. Whereas some of the other teams who might have only 1 or 2 good riders will really be trying to, you know, draft all day and save as much energy. Theta's going to come out of the guns, you know, come out of the blocks, just guns blazing.
Kappa Alpha Theta last won this race in 2003. Up here in this perch above Bill Armstrong Stadium, we can feel some of the enthusiasm and the energy. We'll bring you more of the Women's Little 500 when we return. Absolutely ideal temperatures here on Indiana University, 70 degrees, an azure sky coating the campus, just absolutely beautiful. And the track, if you're going to the window, and we don't recommend that you do, the track is fast for today's 20th running of the Women's Little 500. One of the things that is inevitable today and will be tomorrow, crashes. Here's a look back at some of the past carnage. Just some of the carnage from past races is absolutely incredible. And with the track the way it is, the bikes the way they are, you got to be feeling some pain.
Oh yeah, and those cinders stay in your legs and your arms for life, Judd. I mean, you spend a lot of time scrubbing them out during the race, but there's really no getting away from it. You're going to have those cinder scars for the rest of your life. And it just goes to show the type of dedication, right? These are young women out there. They're going to put themselves on the line today, put themselves at risk of physical harm to chase after that little 500 victory.
Both of you guys have been a part of those crashes. Dylan, I know you've had a chance to break some bones on the track. What does that feel like?
Yeah, you know, it's definitely not something you like to remember, but it's just part of the business. And like I was referring to earlier, you know, that's just part of the cost of doing business, and these ladies are ready to get some business done today.
Well, one of the critical elements of today's race are exchanges, and Sarah Ricci, who's on the pole sitting team for Teter, was kind enough to walk us through what can be the difference between winning and losing.
And the race is on, the Women's Little 500.
This bike is much like one when I was little growing up. It's got the coaster brake, so you have to back pedal in order to stop it. And you really don't use it too much when you're rolling around the track, but it really comes in handy for exchanges. As anyone will say, when we're learning exchanges as a team, that's pretty much my favorite part. I love getting on and off the bike and just feeling when you slam on the brake, feeling the bike shake as you come to a stop. It's probably the most fun thing about these bikes. 2 years ago, we started practicing exchanges like in the fall. And that's basically because we had a handful of rookies. But this year we actually didn't start till about 2 weeks before quals. And it really just came down to our previous knowledge of how to do an exchange. And what basically happens is that we try to time our braking at the same time as the other person is running and grabbing the bike. And if you can get it down perfectly, it's like a ballet. It's just a beautiful thing and it's fun to watch. Also, it only has 1 gear, so when you're out on the track, it's basically how fast you can pedal the bike, and that's all I think about, especially like when I'm doing a time trial, is just how fast can you pedal and how fast can you move your feet. So it's basically the most basic form of competition you can get. It's not having to do with any knowledge of how to shift or anything like that. It's just how fast can you go. I think when I was 10, I got a bike with gears, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever. So really going back to a simple, basic bike is just fun, and it's liberating, and it's something that brings the child out in all of us.
Jason, what are some of the critical things that these women today will be cognizant of when they're changing riders?
Well, when they're changing riders, Shud, they really want to they want to stay parallel. They want to stay in a straight line. As soon as you get horizontal and you move in different directions, that's when exchanges go bad. So they want to line the two people up, right? The person bringing in, the person hopping on, straight line, and just keep it consistent, keep it fluid, you know, a nice solid braking motion, as Sarah mentioned. It's a coaster brake, 46 by 18 gear. And the next rider just wants to hop on and get right back in the pack.
And Dylan, if I'm not mistaken, there are various ways for teams to exchange. They can do a bike-to-bike exchange, which maybe we'll talk about a little bit more as the race unfolds, but there are different ways to exchange.
Well, that's right. I mean, there's the ghost ride change where you basically let go of the bike entirely. And the other issue is that you have 4 girls that are sharing 2 bikes. And so to accommodate the differences in body types, sometimes you can't exchange a bike and you just actually have to just tag off.
Today, the way you see the track and some of the numbers you will see on the back of the jerseys are reflective of where these teams qualify. And guys, this is one of the things we were talking about this morning, the importance or lack thereof of qualification and where they sit on the track.
Well, it's really critical. You're going to see a couple of wrecks in the first 10 or 15 laps, and the teams that start on the back, they're going to be behind those wrecks, and it's going to make for a long day for them, and they're going to be out of really the contest for the championship. So if you start on the front, you know, you have that advantage, and you also have the advantage of getting to choose your pit. And when you select your pit, it's really helpful to be close to start-finish line. You're in the middle of the action. You're close to the penalty box.
That's right, and, you know, and it's something that really shows how all this stuff happens leading up to today. There's the qualifications and the time trials and the pursuits, and so it really shows everything today.
Let's send it down to track level for the invocation by Father Stan Drungowski.
Let us pray. God of light and life, we gather today to celebrate the gifts you have given us and the challenges we receive to live those gifts to the fullest. As the sun shines down on us, the light of your creation, allow us to absorb its warmth that we might see and celebrate your love. The challenge you offer us this day is to see in these women the power of your presence. Let the discipline that has brought them to this day witness to us possibilities for us all. Let the strength they manifest show us your power flowing through them. Let the skills they bring to this race bring them safely and happily to the finish line of this race and to the fulfillment of their lives. God, as we celebrate today the life you have given us, we are all too aware of the pain and suffering being experienced by our brothers and sisters at Virginia Tech. We remember them. And with them, we also remember the life and promise of Dave Wolf, a late racer of the Little 500 for Team Cinzano. In the memory of all who have preceded us to you in hope, dear God, we now offer a moment of silence. Source of all good things, let us truly celebrate well in this race and in our lives. Amen.
Presenting your colors today, the Pershing Rifles Color Guard of Indiana University's ROTC program. I use Pershing Rifles as a competitive drill and honor squad that consistently receives high marks in competition across the country. Be watching skyward for parachuters from Skydive Greensburg carrying the American flag, the state of Indiana flag, the checkered flag, and the Granger flag. Please join our riders and coaches in celebrating America's freedom, those who now protect it, and to honor those who have made the ultimate sacrifice. Ladies and gentlemen, we introduce Betsy Yushkrat, our featured soloist for this 2007 Little 500. Betsy Yushkrat, of course, Miss Indiana, and our national anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets' bombs bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of and the
Miss Indiana, ladies and gentlemen, Betsy Yushkrat. As the starting riders come to the start-finish line and we get ready for racing in this 20th Women's Little 500, we'll be getting ready for another one of our traditions momentarily. Here, ladies and gentlemen, the nationally acclaimed a cappella group based at Indiana University, Straight No Chaser, presenting Back Home Again in Indiana.
Back home again in Indiana, and it seems that I can see the gleaming candlelight still shining bright through the sycamore for me. The new moon haze sends all its fragrance from the fields I used to roam. When I dream about the moon out on the Wabash, then I long for my Indiana home. Back home again in Indiana, and it seems that I can see the gleaming candlelight still shining through the sycamores for me. The new moon hay sends all its fragrance from the fields I used to roam. When I dream about the moon out of the Wabash, then I long for my Indiana.
Straight no chaser. Back home again in Indiana. Today's balloon release of black and white balloons is in honor of the late Buddy McAtee. Mr. McAtee was a member of IUSF Board of Associates and an executive for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Little 500 would not be what it is.
Absolutely perfect conditions for today's race.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. I mean, it's warm. There's not a lot of wind out. You know, in fact, I'm guessing that actually for some of the riders that might actually be a problem because the weather hasn't been this warm, and today they're racing in this weather. They haven't had a lot of time to acclimate. Jason, I mean, what's it been like for the last couple of weeks out here?
Well, I haven't been in the Midwest, Dylan, but I've been following the Weather Channel and Google Maps to understand what's going on with the weather. And what I do know is that the weather here has been kind of rough, so it's been tough on the track. And what's good for track conditions is when there's a lot of water, right? Because then it's compact and then it's really fast. So as the track dries out today, what you'll see is conditions will be a little bit tough on them. Ruts form in this cinder track, and it's really tougher to maintain your bike when those ruts form in warm conditions like it is today.
Guys, today, as you mentioned, very little wind today, and when there's wind, there is strategy. How does the strategy change when there is a lack of wind?
Well, it just means that there's not as much benefit to drafting. You know, and there isn't a headwind tailwind section like there normally is. So it'll change the way that they kind of do their long-term strategy. With a lot of wind, you want to wait longer because it takes a lot more energy. With no wind, you can go from the gun.
As the women start their parade laps, we'll bring you back for the start of the Women's Fiddles Little 500. You're watching HDNet. Welcome back to Bill Armstrong Stadium on the campus of Indiana University. The women are in the midst of their parade laps before starting the 20th running of the Women's Little 500. Let's take a look at some of the teams very quickly. Team 1 Teter, we talked about it briefly. This is a team, guys, that won in 2005. And Sarah Ricci had said she was just honored because that team was very top-heavy, a lot of seniors.
Yeah, look for Sarah to really stand out today. She's done everything right this spring with winning ITTs and missing out. You know, and they're coached by someone that's experienced as well, Chris White-Tote. She's won the race as a rider, also as a coach. They're going to be tough to contend with today.
Kappa Delta, a very quick team, another team that we'll have to keep our eyes out for. They do have one inexperienced rider in the race.
Yeah, you know, Jed, some of these teams might actually be looking to try to form an alliance in the early part of the race because they may not have that one person that's a great finisher. So really their opportunity to win the race is to make it hard right from the beginning and try to get away and limit it down to maybe 3 or 4 girls on the last lap instead of going against the entire field. So it might be interesting. We're going to have to look for some alliances out there.
Jason in black, the Cycledelics, and they have the Lobig sisters who will be a force today.
Yeah, I understand that one of the Lobigs, I think it's Pam, she won a national championship on the track for collegiate national championships in the team sprint. So, you know, she's talented, obviously, in the Little 500 and then in the cycling world as a whole.
Kappa Alpha Theta, we talked about. The other team that we failed to mention, Kappa Gamma, they're wearing the yellow jersey. They won it last year.
Yeah, Kappa Gamma's always got to be a favorite, you know, coached by Bill Nass. And here you can see them winding up. This is going to be a fast first lap. We'll see if the green flag comes out. Looks like they're in a good line.
The green flag is out, and the 20th running of the Women's Little 500 is underway.
and that's Kappa Delta wanting to take the lead right off from the start. You can see her opening up a little gap. Interesting for Teter. I know Sarah Riki's not on the bike for them, but she's just letting a little gap open up. She'll want to close that. Kappa Gamma moving up on the outside real quick. That's Carol and Andrew.
Yeah, I was just going to say, these first couple of laps are really important because the riders at the back are really trying hard to move up. So if there are any crashes in the open, it doesn't interfere with their ability to win the race. And so that's why these first couple of laps are so fast.
Very basic. Remember, it's a 100-lap race. For the men, it will be 200 that we'll see tomorrow. And the only other real rule is that there has to be 5 exchanges for these women's team. It'll be 10 tomorrow.
It won't be hard for them to do that. It won't be fun to watch today. You'll see different exchanges, as Dylan mentioned earlier. The Thetas will do what we call a ghost exchange, where no rider's actually touching the bike for a little while. In every other team, you'll see conventional exchanges, and 5 of those at that.
You can really see the field is starting to string out here, and I think, you know, it's going to be like this for the first part of the race. It's kind of got a rhythm to it. And the very first couple 10, 15 laps is when the first part of the action is going to happen, and we'll see some real changes happen.
Guys, one of the things in talking to some of the riders and in talking to you guys, what seems to be very important is leading early so you can avoid crashes, because they seem to be back further in the pack.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you want to stay in the front, you want to lead, but you don't want to waste a bunch of energy, so there's a fine science to doing that.
I got an interesting glimpse earlier. You saw Kappa Gamma leave that first lap. Bill Noss came out on the track, their coach, and actually slowed Carolyn down. He said, you know, you have a lot of adrenaline that first lap. Just slow down a little bit, sit in. You're not going to win it on the first couple laps.
One of the things we should point out, there are 3 women's teams that have to serve pre-race penalties. Tri-Delts have a 10-second penalty, the DG's a 2-second penalty, and they're one of the top teams that at least qualified today, and the Chi Omega, they also have a 2-second penalty.
You know, that's right. This morning we were meeting with the race director trying to get the background on how these penalties arrived or, you know, evolved. And essentially, you know, there's a year of planning that comes up to getting a team on the track, and it's really important that that team follows all the guidelines and the training and goes through the proper procedures. And the only way that the organization can really get them to do that is by giving them penalties, you know, which they have to serve on race day, and it can be the difference between winning and losing.
And sure, and the goal is always safety, right? I mean, they want the rookie riders to come for 75% of the amount of the time, and they need to show up for mandatory meetings because goal is safety.
That's right. Wow, we saw a little bobble there. You know, I think the track is a little bit
it's
sketchy.
It's dried out, Dylan. When it's dry, it's the cinders are loose, and it's a little bit tougher to handle your bike. There's Alpha Phi coming to the front. That's Trevi Ramos. She's opening up a little gap. It'd be interesting to see how long a sets these riders do their first time out.
What's typical?
Well, typical, I think, is going to be between 5 and 12 for the women. Oh, and you see the rider in the 3rd position. That's Kappa Alpha Theta. They're one of our favorites. They're down. And that was a crash on the backstretch.
It looks like she's trying to get restarted, but she's having some problems with her bike, and the actual mechanics are running across the field with a spare bike to try to help her out, but that's going to be a really big problem for her. But, you know, also notice as she's trying to chase back on, we're going to see a replay here of the crash. It looks like she was looking over her shoulder. Oh, no, she just caught a wheel, and oh, man, she went down hard.
That's unfortunate. I think that's Liz Pilate. At least she's up and she's okay. You can see her bringing that bike in. They're probably not sure if the bike that she wrecked on is okay or not. They want to get a fresh rider and a fresh bike out. They got about a quarter of a lap, they're a little bit over a quarter of a lap down right now. And that's one of our big-time race favorites, Kappa Alpha Theta.
You know, and this is a very crucial moment for Theta because they've got to get back on. If you'll notice, the field was kind of spread gutter to gutter, and it's usually a visual indication that they're going slower than when they're all single file and really drilling it. So this is Theta's opportunity to get back in the race. It's right now or never.
And you can see it's not fast, Dylan, right? If it's a pack like that, 3 or 4 wide, you know the pace isn't too fast. So this is a good opportunity for Theta.
That's right.
Since we're seeing some exchanges and we've already seen a crash, talk about the uniqueness of this bike.
Well, it's a 46 by 18 gear, and they only have one to choose from, and again, a coaster brake. It's just really a conventional bike. You can do things to change out the bike. You can change the wheels, you can change the handlebars, but you can't change the bike itself. And the interesting thing is everyone rides on the same bike.
That's right, and it's all provided by Schwinn. You know, Schwinn's gone out there and taken what's kind of a typical road bike and really customized it for this event with the special tires, special forks. It's really an interesting event in that sense.
And it's a coaster brake. It's not handbrake, so it's difficult to modulate.
That's right. It's just like the brakes we grew up on our BMX bikes. You know, they're either on or off. And in fact, that's actually what causes some of the problems. Is at the front of the field, one of the riders will ripple or kind of just move a little bit, and it causes this chain reaction that by the time it hits the back of the field, you know, somebody's slamming onto the brakes, and next thing you know, they're surfing on the ground.
There are also no toe clips on these bikes, and because there are essentially only 2 bikes that they use, some of the riders, both men and women, will have an increased sole so they can get onto the bike and ride it comfortably.
That's correct. That's one of the variables. You know, 4 riders, everyone has different seat heights, different heights. So to compensate for that, you'll see them, you know, add a little bit to the insole, get those special shoes made so the 2 riders of different heights can ride the same bike.
You know, we see Theta is still trying to chase on. It looks like they're about 5 to 10 seconds back, and I think she's got a good chance of doing it. But you know what? The team is really going to have to focus right now because they're going to have to do really clean exchanges to take advantage of the entire team, and that way they don't leave it up to just one rider trying to make contact with the field. And so we should take notice in the pit. It looks like they might be ready to change in this next lap here.
And that's Brittany Mahoney on the bike for Theta, trying to close it. She finished 4th in ITTs. It looks like she's doing a terrific job. It's down to about an 1/8 of a lap lead now.
Sarah Ricci will jump onto the bike as Jackie Moeller, who started things off for the Teter team, the pole sitter, has made an exchange.
Well, you know, that what's good about that is that the Teter team has recognized that Theta's in trouble, right? And that's one of the other strong teams. So they're going to put Sarah in the race right now to really string out the field and make it fast so that the Theta team can't make contact again.
Is it possible this early on to ride one of the teams out of the race?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And you can just see Sarah on the front just drilling her, right? She has a gap opened up. Oh, I'm sorry, that's not Sarah. That's Delta Gamma, our team number 6. They're actually serving a penalty.
Well, penalties would be something that we'll see both today and tomorrow. And one of the interesting things, guys, in talking to some of the riders and the race directors, that the good riders, as we see a bad exchange, it looked like for Delta Gamma, is that sometimes the riders will hear about the penalty before everybody else at the track will, and they'll try and serve it before anybody else knows.
Well, that's right, and I think that partly comes down to the strategy of trying to find the best time in the race when things are slow, gutter to gutter, try to serve that penalty. And, you know, there's a strategy that they come into the race with, and I think it's like a plan that they're trying to execute right now.
Kappa Delta in the lead as we just hit the 11th lap. That's Lindsay Mank out of Fort Wayne, Indiana.
Yeah, and the Kappas are really putting the pain on the Theta house right now because they're still trying to catch back up, and we've seen the entire field just blown to pieces here. And the teams are just trying to do these exchanges to really keep things going, and we can see the chaos erupting.
Guys, how difficult is it for the Theta rider without the use of a peloton to be able to draft and catch up?
Well, it's very difficult. Right now she wants to get together with other people out there on the track. And perhaps, you know, some of the riffraff that's back there, you know, tag on, work together and try to catch up with the leaders. And right now the leader is our pole sitter, Teter.
Remember, this is a 100-lap race. 12 are in the book, and we've got a crash there in turn 1 that's taken down at least 3 riders.
That's right, Judd, and you know, we're going to see these girls are all going to be trying to get back in the race. Meanwhile, the leaders, and there goes another one. You know, this is just the chaos of the little 500, and it looks like they put out the yellow flag, which is probably the best thing that could happen for Theta.
Well, they can't increase their position to the leaders, right, in theory.
Right.
So,
but they won't lose any more time.
They won't lose any more ground.
Here we've got to look at that wreck between turns 1 and 2.
Yeah, you know, I think the track conditions are really making these crashes more prevalent than we've ever seen before.
Well, guys, here at the track, everybody talks about the groove and then what is outside of the groove, and outside of the groove seems to be more dangerous.
Yeah, the groove's about 3 feet from the gutter, and that's where most of the riding is done throughout the year. So it's really compact and nice there. It's most like asphalt close to the gutter. When you get out, you know, 10 or 15 feet from the gutter, that cement gutter, then it gets a little bit sketchy. You can see the cinders are looser, and that's where the ruts form.
Yeah, and even though they have special tires for this specific event, they're still slippery if you get out into that dirt or dust out on the outside of the guide. So I think that's going to be a big issue, and I can guarantee you the men are paying attention to the race today because they're going to think about how that's going to affect their race tomorrow.
They're expecting similar conditions, maybe even a touch warmer tomorrow for the 57th running of the men's Little 500. At this point, we are under caution. They're just starting the green, but this is after a big crash in turn 1. Stay with us for more of the women's Little 500. Welcome back to Bill Armstrong Stadium at Indiana University. Right now we are on lap 17 of the 20th running of the women's Little 500. And at this moment, the Cycledelics, for the time being, have moved in front with the Lobig sisters. And guys, they said they wanted to wear black this year because they felt it was more intimidating.
Well, it is. They're all in black, and they're coached by Glenn Spizak, who's also the coach of the Dodds team for the men. You know, they just have a big tradition, and they have some strong riders this year. I think, you know, you're seeing a couple independent teams, a couple resident hall teams, and Kappa Gamma up there duking it out.
You know, we've got 17 girls in the lead pack right now, and they've all kind of regrouped. They're kind of looking around, trying to feel each other out a little bit to see what's going to happen next. I mean, they know that Theta is still trying to catch up, but we still have all the top girls right up in the front.
What type of communication is going on right now in the peloton?
Well, they're looking around at each other, trying to get an idea of how everybody feels, looking at the expression on their face. You know, they might be thinking about, okay, maybe now's a good time to make a move. Maybe we should wait. They're looking at their coaches.
And amazingly enough, Kappa Alpha Theta, one of our pre-race favorites, is back there with the leaders. So, you know, they did a ton of work, changed riders multiple times, and I think that's Allie McCormick right there, moving up on the outside. She's got to be excited. Bring her team back, and there was just a wreck.
Another crash.
Allie avoided it, but it looks like AGD went down.
And because of that, it's going to cost them some considerable time. One of the fastest teams during qualifying, they qualified 5th, and they're going to need a new bike.
Oh, that's just crushing for them. They're going to have to wait for that bike.
There's a look at the crash. You know, like I mentioned earlier, just a little bit of wheel bobble all of a sudden turns into a huge chain reaction. And that's why it's so important to be near the front of this pack. You'll notice the top 3 or 4 girls are staying out of the trouble.
And Dylan, I don't know if you can relate to this, but we've seen most wrecks today happen when the pace is kind of slowing down.
That's
when they're
right.
3 or 4 wide and when it's not really tough. Does that also happen in the pro peloton?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the worst crashes are always when you're going slow and coming into a big village and the road gets narrow and everybody bunches up, and the next thing you know, you're surfing on the pavement.
Those villages kill me every time. Right now, lap 20 at this point. Teter and last year's winner, Kappa Gamma, right behind him, and they lost an incredible rider last year in Jessup, but all of them, and talking to them guys, said that they felt they are better because they had a chance to train with her.
Oh, they're an extremely strong team this year. All 4 riders, or all 3 of them came back from last year's team. And with the tradition that they have, you know, look for them. It doesn't surprise me at all that they're on the front.
One of the things in talking to some of their riders, including Caroline Andrews, she said that 12th didn't really bother them. They didn't train for the qualifying events, of which there are 3. There's what, ITT, Team Pursuit, and Missing Out. But it's qualifications. It's your qualifying time. One rider each doing 4 laps essentially that earns you a pole position.
And Dylan, you know a little bit about training. You want to peak, right? So maybe they didn't want to peak for the Spring Series events. Perhaps they wanted to peak today. And there's Right Cycledelics coming in to serve a penalty, it looks like.
Yeah, this is a good time to serve that penalty, you know, and you're right about trying to peak for the race and get into a position where you're going to be able to race well, you know, get that good pit selection, but then really have your riders come up for race day and not qualification day.
And they're making her come back. We lost that, but they actually made her come back. She didn't serve. It must be a 5-second penalty.
What would a 5-second penalty be for?
We're not sure at this point. We're going to have to get word from the PA or from the race director. There's people in towers, you know, judges and race director that hand those down.
Well, it's very significant at this point. Cycledelics have considerable amount of room to try and make up as you take a look at where some of the judges are situated around the track.
And Judd, possible reasons for that penalty. It could be that they didn't do the exchanges within their pit. It could be that they impeded on another rider, or perhaps during the yellow they increased their position to the leader. That's very likely.
Well, and now that we know that the Cycledelics are trying to chase back on, some of the other teams you can see are starting to apply the pressure to the front of the field. and make it really difficult for them to catch back on. And let's say maybe even Cycledelics does get back on, but just think of the energy that they had to expend to get back on. That might be the difference between winning and losing on the last lap.
The pits, and we're getting word that apparently creeping was the reason for the penalty. The pits themselves are, what, 8 feet in length, but you have 16 feet to complete that exchange?
Exactly. Yeah, you have 2 pit lengths to complete the exchange. Your pit and then the neighboring pit next to you. In this case, the penalty was creeping. So creeping, when we were under yellow, apparently they increased their position to the leader, and that was monitored by the race officials in the towers, and that penalty was handed down.
Sarah Ricci just coming in to make an exchange. She's part of the pole-sitting team Teter. Last year they were 12th in this race. They won it in 2005, and they've had 4 top 10 finishes.
And they've just become a dominant force. Bree Kovac really started it for Teter, and Sarah's just, taking it full reins and really taking this program to the next level. They're really looking and gunning for a win today.
Guys, it's pretty interesting how some of these independent teams form. We'll talk about the Cutters a little bit more tomorrow, because they were essentially some guys who were disassociated from Delta Chi, your fraternity that started the Cutters team. But how do most teams get started, independent teams?
Well, the neat thing about the Little 500 is it creates bike racers. So a lot of times you'll see a group of people that come to the track. It could be there's a rugby team in the men's race. The IU swimmers have traditionally formed their own team. ROTC, Army ROTC. So what happens is somebody will see the race and hear about it. And the beautiful thing about the Student Foundation is they harvest those riders. Give them the skills and knowledge and the assets to come out here and compete. And next thing you know, a year from that date, you're a bike racer.
We can just see these exchanges and how difficult they are. If you get horizontal, like Jason was referring to earlier, the next thing you know, the bike's dropped and you lose 10, 15 seconds.
If you haven't done an exchange before, Dylan, I don't know what you think about it, but it's kind of scary, right? Someone's coming in there hot, full speed, and you have to pick up that bike.
Absolutely, you got to grab the bike, jump back on, and then get back up to speed. And if you do it, an ideal exchange is where you grab the bike and jump back in and grab onto the back of the field as it goes by, and then you expend the least amount of energy.
You just don't see it in the pro peloton. I guess Lance had to get off and get back on a couple times. Maybe cut through a little chicane, but you just don't see it in the pro peloton. This is something unique.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, in professional races, you have a bike that's perfectly fit to you. And even if you have a mechanical failure or a crash during the event, your team has a spare bike, and by the time you get back up, the spare bike is sitting there and you just jump back on. So this is really unique, and not only is it difficult to do the exchanges, but these bikes, you've got 2 bikes between 4 women, and not all of them are going to fit perfectly. So it's pretty amazing that they can make this happen and go as fast as they do.
There's about half the length of the track between the favorites that are leading the peloton right now, Kappa Delta, Kappa Gamma, and also Kappa Alpha Theta, and 2 of the riders who are some of the favorites that one got penalized, Cycledelics, and the other, AGD, fell.
That's right, and they're trying to catch back on, and you look at this pack of riders, and they're going slow. That you see that bunching up. They're going gutter to gutter. Some of them are trying to do exchanges, but this is really the right time, the best opportunity to try to catch back on. And the riders at the front are trying to balance out the strategy of making the race hard while not using too much energy.
Guys, is there a way the AGD team and the Cycledelics at this point to try and make up the gap? The 2 of them can work together?
Oh, absolutely. You'll see them kind of almost in like a team pursuit formation. You'll see those 2 riders trading poles, taking on the load of the wind resistance on the front. And so there's a good chance with those 2 strong teams together, Cycledelics and AGD, that they'll catch the leaders again. Race usually slows down right now. This is lap 30. It's real fast in the beginning, real fast at the end. The challenge for the teams that are in the lead right now is to keep it fast and not let the Cycledelics and the AGDs catch up.
Good exchange for the Cycledelics as they try and make up some ground. What's some of the communication that the riders are getting from their coaches in the pits?
Well, it's really important. They're trying to understand what's going on out there. How many laps to go? How many laps should I do on this set? They're trying to figure out, especially for the girls that are off the back and trying to make contact. they can't see everything, whereas their coaches have a 360-degree view and say, hey, why don't you slow down? Another girl's coming up behind you. She's really strong. You two can get together and work your way back to the peloton. So they're really dependent on their coaches at this point in the race.
And it's a communication. It's kind of old school communication. You'll see them right on the dry erase board. They want to know how many laps until they're going to come out. Perhaps what teams are in the lead, what teams are down. You might see Cycledelics down right now, HDNet down. Coaches will write that on the board so the riders know to pick up the pace, right? Because other girls are trying to catch up.
Theta coming in for an exchange, so they'll sprint out.
There's the ghost exchange.
32nd lap, 31 now on the board.
Here's a look at some of the exchanges that we've seen earlier in the race.
That looks like Kappa Delta. That was a good exchange, right? She got on the bike quick.
Not only that, but the bike barely even slowed down. That was an example of a great exchange.
And the difference in the second one, that was a bike-to-bike, right? So they couldn't ride the same one.
That's right.
The advantage to using the same bike is it's actually faster, right? You keep your momentum. You're bringing a bike in and the other girl's running, so you keep that momentum.
And, and when the exchanges go wrong, it just costs so much time.
Well, at this point, it looks like the DGs are coming in for a change. And the Thetas are still leading the pack after making that exchange.
That's right, and you could see the field is like single file, which means they're going really fast, and you could hear the crowd chanting Theta, Theta, Theta. And like we talked about this morning, the Theta said, you know what, we're going to come out and make this race really hard, and we're starting to see that strategy play out right now.
Guys, talking to some of the girls about the Theta team, one of the teams, and we'll leave them nameless, but it's one of the favorites, said that they are mean on the track.
It's a fine balance, right? Do you make friends on the track, or are you aggressive and you not let people grab wheels? It really is a fine balance in bike racing.
Well, that's right. I don't think the winner is decided by how many friends you make out there today. So these girls are serious. They spent a lot of time preparing today. They are going to do whatever they can to win the race.
And I talked to some of the Theta people, and they said, don't confuse confidence for aggressiveness.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, I think, there's something that's said for being confident and aggressive at the same time. You're really, especially halfway through the race when your legs are killing you, that mental superiority can make a big difference, especially as it comes down to the final few laps.
We talked a little bit earlier about exchanges. Well, exchanges are part of the formula, right? The ingredient to having a good race. It's just mandatory. You have to have good exchanges to be there at the end. One of the reasons Theta is so strong, they just have a terrific tradition, right? They helped start the women's race, and Tom Schwegler's brought them along so far, and now you see Dave Jordan in the pit for them today. So Theta's is just a really strong storied tradition that can handle those exchanges.
Jason, we just saw the Teter team holding up their whiteboard with a big Z on it. We don't know what that means, and obviously they have some sort of communication strategy planned out, like we're at a baseball game or something, and it's really interesting to see that they're playing this out.
Well, you don't. The deal is you don't want the other teams to know when you're coming in for an exchange. So you'll see Teter coming in for an exchange now. Maybe they tip their hat a little bit. We know sure. Z means exchange. They didn't want the other teams to know, and here they are coming in for an exchange.
So the Teter team will come out and make the exchange, and jumping on the bike is Julie Benveniste.
And that was a pretty good exchange, because she's going to try to just jump right back onto the back of the pack. She's got to be careful because she's not really in the groove, and it's pretty dirty and dusty and slippery out there, but I think she's going to get back on no problem.
Guys, for people who are seeing this event for the first time, these women and men we'll see tomorrow train seriously for this event. How many miles would you say most teams, women and men, log before they get to the track here?
Ooh, that's a good question, and I think it varies, right, based on the contenders. I think 150 miles a week is a pretty good benchmark to think that these women are riding all spring. So it's 12, 15 hours a week. It's also a lot of time at the track, and it's a lot of time helping the younger riders, right? So they're learning leadership discipline just up front, because you kind of it takes a full team, right? You have to coach the younger riders along. But a lot of time, 15 hours a week, 15, 20 hours a week.
And it really does take a team to win this race, and that's all about having good organization. You have to have a good pre-race prep, be organized, show up on time, be prepared, bring all your equipment, and those are the types of habits that they try to instill right from the beginning. These ladies and the men are training for months ahead of time, and a good coach knows all that, and they're going to have everything detailed out down to the last very, very minute detail. And the other interesting thing is that these girls they're out there training. They have spring training camps. Some of them, they'll seclude themselves the week leading up to the race so they don't have as many distractions. You know, a lot of these girls have their parents and their friends and family coming in from out of town, and that can be a big distraction. And so it's really important to kind of pay attention to the little details.
And you know, so in college, as you can remember, Dylan, you have two big breaks. Christmas break, they may go somewhere warm and train, and that's base miles in December and January. And then when springtime comes around, quals is getting close. So they'll go on spring break. They'll really focus on exchanges and the qualifications position. So they spend a lot of time, and they even go on trips to train. And then they race with IU Cycling Club in the spring as well. So these women are just committed to being bike racers.
So we saw that one rider making an attack off the front. And it's hard to tell right now, is she attacking to do an exchange, or is she actually trying to attack to get away? We won't know until we actually get around to the next corner.
Peters up there, you see the green jersey on the inside. Right now we're through 38 laps, and there's still a decent pack of women's favorites that are at the top. You can see Kappa Delta, you can see the DG team, Kappa Alpha Theta, Teter, Kappa Gamma.
So we're almost at the halfway point, or at least through the first third of the race. And you can see the strategy starting to play out. The girls are trying to not use up too much energy, but stay at the front, do clean exchanges, stay out of trouble is, I think, the biggest important thing right now.
And guys, you know, maybe more, this is more for Jason, but because this race is half the amount of laps that the men's race is, how does that change some of the strategy that you'll see from the women's team?
Well, it's really not going to change strategy that much. I mean, it's a more compact race, right? And the riders don't have to ride as long, but they're going to do a little bit shorter sets, right? They'll do 5 to 10 lap sets where you might see the men do 10 to 15. But these women are just as strong as the men. And it's interesting, if you look at ITT results, you'll see Sarah had beat out a lot of the men yesterday. So a lot of these women could arguably ride in the men's race.
Seeing a lot of exchanges going on here, and I think that's everybody's trying to keep the whole team fresh. Everybody's doing probably, what, 5 to 10 lap sets, Jason?
Yeah, I think that's average, maybe around 10.
And just to tell the story very quickly, it was the Kappa Alpha Theta team in 1987 that tried to qualify. There were other women's teams that attempted to get into the race in the past, but they qualified almost near and above some of the men's teams, but not to the point that they were one of the top 33. Today there are 31 teams in the field. A full field is 33 teams. They narrowly missed in 1987, but in doing so, they demonstrated to the IU Foundation and the powers that be here that they should have a women's race of their own. And the Kappa Alpha Theta women, they definitely feel that history as they ride.
Oh, they treat that tradition with pride, and they should. I think it was Martha Hincap who really kind of got it going for them. And Martha was a tremendous cyclist. But they just have great riders over the history, like Sarah Wilson and Ann Holterhoff, Liz Millen, Nicole Vincent. Just a really storied tradition. And what helps is that knowledge and kind of that tradition, that feeling that you should win, is transpired into the riders out there currently.
What do these riders know, having ridden in past races, or if they're a little bit old?
Well, you pick up a lot of knowledge. For the first time you ride in this race, it happens so fast, and there's so many people, so many people cheering your name, and there's wrecks and there's chaos. It's tough that first year, but after you've seen it all happen once, you start to calm down, and then you can really compete.
Well, at this point, it doesn't seem like there are as many crashes, or at least in the last couple of seasons.
Well, I think they're starting to get more comfortable. Obviously, the groove is probably getting a little bit tighter. There's something to be said that the experienced riders are kind of, rising to the top, so to speak, so that the front pack is really made up of veterans at this point, or at least girls that are really good on the bike.
And they've made it through that first rotation, right? I mean, a lot of the rookies, the women riding the race for the first time, they got the jitterbugs out, and they've already been through the first rotation, so a lot of the women are on their second sets now.
So it looks like we have about 15 to 17 girls on the lead lap together.
Yeah, and Teter still looks strong. They're kind of riding alone. Theta looks like they want to sit in. Kappa Gamma just wanting to grab a wheel right now. But all of our favorites, just competing, just trying to hold on, trying to wear the other racers out, race of attrition, and get to the end, get to lap 100. There's a wreck.
And I think this is just happening. The girls are getting tired now. They start to make mistakes. It's just, the track is really slippery.
From what we can tell, it doesn't look like those are any of the leaders at this point. The leader's just crossing the line for lap 44. Here's a look back at the crash in turn 3.
Oh, and that looks like AO Pi, the team in brown. They must have rubbed a wheel, right? So front wheel rubbed one of the riders in front, rear wheel. She lost control and took down a couple others.
Yeah, and it looks like she's hurt. You know, she hit pretty hard on her hip, and her leg was just covered with cinders. And that's an example of how do you balance out the amount of energy it takes to stay on the very front, like we've seen with the Teter and Theta and the girls that have been riding, you know, consistently on the front, or you know, the girls that are trying to sit in and not get to the front at all. You don't know which strategy is going to work right, because if you crash, you're out.
It is. That's a great thing about Little 5. You want to be on the front. This is going to be an exciting race today.
We're almost halfway through the 20th running of the women's Little 500. Well, they have just gone back to a green after another crash that took place between one of the riders. And one of the things that we saw earlier when there was a yellow flag, guys, was a long penalty, or at least in this race it would be considered long for Cycledelics. How do you avoid creeping in, and how does that get determined by the judges?
Well, there's a lot of officials out there, and what they do is they try to help the riders when there is a yellow to maintain their positions to the leaders. And again, that's the goal. So you'll see a lot of communication, a lot of headsets from the officials that volunteer their time. Right, everyone volunteers their time. Students and alumni come back and try to help the riders and organize the race.
You know what? Something interesting to know right now is that the lead peloton is really trying to put the pressure on, because Cycledelics is about a quarter lap down.
Yeah, this is fun, because you see those 5 teams that we talked a lot about earlier, right? You see Teter and Kappa Delta, Kappa Alpha Theta, Kappa Kappa Gamma in yellow, and then Alpha Phi, a team that's been strong the last couple of years in purple. You know, they're right up there with the leaders as well. They've created a tradition in their own right. They're helped out by Rob Ramey.
Yeah, and you know, we see some of the girls on the front there talking to each other. They're trying to, do a little collaboration. They both know that Cycledelics is off the back, so they're talking about, hey, maybe we should turn the pressure up a little bit, make sure that she doesn't catch back on.
Looks like Sarah Riki, part of the pole sitting team at Teter, is on the bike right now, as Kappa Delta, for the moment, leaps out of the lead as we're hit lap 49, almost halfway through this 100-lap race.
And the fun thing about this, you kind of wonder what's going on. We're at the middle of the race right now, but the fun thing about it is every set is a little miniature race. I mean, every set counts for these girls, and every exchange counts. And right now, you're going to see Theta come in for an exchange, and when you're coming in for that exchange, you're just absolutely spent. You know, you've been on the rivet, you're tired, and now you have to focus and hand off that bike.
That's right, and your set doesn't actually end until you make that exchange, so you got to save a little something to do a clean exchange, because if you do a bad exchange, you're actually going to put your teammate in a bad situation. So that's something that's really important to think about.
It's that team dynamics. I can remember when I rode, one of the hardest things for me is if you hurt one of your teammates, right? You didn't give them a good gap, you didn't set them up in a good position during the exchange, and that's one of the hardest things for these girls. So they're fighting for each other.
We're getting at a really crucial point in the race. We've officially reached the halfway point, and we've got utter chaos happening on the field, and it's really difficult to keep track of who's where and what, and we have a whole staff of people that are helping us keep track. But for those of you that are at home, it's just really important to pay attention to the front. Look at the top teams. We have Theta, we've got Cycledelics chasing back on, Kappa Delta and Teter. All of the favorites that we talked about earlier today are making this race.
Lindsay Make right now is on the bike for Kappa Delta as Teter moves in front of him for the time being. And one of the things that she talked about, guys, was that looking back at last year's race, and they were second by just a nose, was that they weren't assertive enough.
So it looks like Teter's coming in to do an exchange, which is why she's really pushing the pressure right now. She's looking around to make sure no one's on her wheel. And Jason, sometimes if you are paying close enough attention and you see one of the other teams trying to do an exchange and you jump onto her back wheel, that's an opportunity to attack.
That's exactly what you want, right? We call the distance the leader gets from the pack a gap, right? You don't want that gap to form. So if you can hop on the rear wheel, draft, and let them pull you out, you're limiting that gap and you're making it harder for the next rider.
That's right.
Well, it looks like Cycledelics, because of that penalty, they're having difficulty trying to make up the ground. They're on lap 52, and they are more than half the track behind the leader.
Jed, you had an interesting quote on Katie earlier, saying that she didn't think that they were aggressive enough, and that being Kappa Delta last year. The interesting thing about that, when you don't win the race, and I know how this is, when you don't win the race, you want to change your strategy for next year. So what she may have been saying is that they're going to be more aggressive and try to attack, try to get in a break early on and not let it come down to a sprint, which it was last year.
One of the things that all athletes talk about, whether it's this sport or any other, is confidence, but how can a lack of confidence or being a confident cyclist in this case help you or hurt you on the track?
Well, it's really these moments where things are really chaotic, or there's a crash, or you're not totally clear on what's going on, that the confidence is really going to help you out, because you can have all the strength, you can do all the best preparation, but when it comes down to race day, it's all about performing under pressure. So that confidence is what's really going to get you through that difficult portion of the race.
In its packed position as well, right? I mean, you have to get a wheel and you don't want to be too far back, so you have to be confident enough to take that wheel, right, if they're not going to give it to you.
How about the move that AGD has made, and they are unable to escape the huge crash just beyond turn 1.
And what a tragedy, because Alpha Gamma Delta just made contact with the back of the lead pack, and then of course we see this huge crash.
And it looks like Athena went down as well, team number 8. Oh, that is tragic, because AGD did a lot of work to get back in the groove.
So we have, it looks like 8 ladies in the front. We're going to go back to the crash. And again, someone just taps a wheel, and then it just causes this huge chain reaction. They weren't even going that fast. Jason, again, it's that moment when the field is slowing down, it's not strung out. It looked like it was Delta Sigma Pi that caused the wreck.
And they're a business fraternity, so obviously they do a lot of time studying as well. And we talked a little bit about confidence, right? Confidence also means riding the right distance from the rider in front of you, right? If it slows down, just being comfortable with that and not overlapping wheels, not rubbing wheels with the rider in front of you.
Just basically judging the leaders at this point, as we're under a yellow and a caution through lap 55. Kappa Gamma in yellow. Right behind them, Kappa Delta. In the light blue is what they're calling it here. Kappa Alpha Theta in white, because they won the spring series. Teter in green, the pole sitter.
This is going to be so much fun, because Kappa Delta is really, really strong. Kappa Alpha Theta is strong. All the teams are strong, but Teter, I look at them as having the strongest rider, Sarah Ricci, because she's won the spring series event. So it's going to be interesting to see how the other teams deal with the strongest rider in the pack, and that's Sarah on Teter.
A few moments ago, we saw the paramedic trying to tell the girl, no, your race is over. And she's like, no, I'm not finished. I'm getting back in there. And I think that just shows how dedicated and how passionate these ladies are about the Little 500. And it looks like we're back to green.
And the tough thing about the Little 5, Dylan, it's not like you have a whole series of, you don't have spring races, right? It's like you have one race a year, and it's one day. And so it all counts today. And that's why they're feeling the adrenaline, and they're not going to go home for anything.
And what seems so hard is these women, and we'll see the men tomorrow, can train as much as they can, but it's one bad break, something completely out of your control, that can ruin all of that.
Yeah, this race can be decided in 1 second.
So good planning, good coaching and good fitness kind of keeps you out of trouble. As you can see, KD, obviously they have good fitness. They're really showing their legs a little bit right now.
As a team, Kappa Delta went to Kissimmee, Florida to train with the ATOs. ATO, last year's champion in the men's race, did not qualify this year.
And I know that was just crushing for them. You have 3 chances to qualify, and they didn't make it on their 3rd try.
And look, she's really, this isn't an exchange. She's going to come and do an exchange, but look at how she's just stretched out the whole field. It's completely single file. Now, this is a great opportunity for a Teter rider, or maybe a Theta, and look, it was a fake.
So she's doing, we
did a fake exchange there, and look how strung out, and the Theta rider's in trouble. Teter is going to have to come through and close the gap. And if I was in 3rd or 4th, I would be trying to figure out a way to get across to the girl in the very, very front right now. Get a little breakaway going, and next thing you know, the race is down to 2 or 3 riders instead of 8 or 9.
I believe that's Lindsay Mank on the bike right now for Kappa Delta.
And she's their strongest rider, finishing in the top 3 in ITTs and finals and missing out. It's really just kind of testing their legs right now, showing the other teams what they have. Here she comes in for an exchange.
This was a team that was on the pole last year.
Yeah, certainly. So they know how to do it. They know how to exchange. It'd be interesting to see the next rider getting on. That looks like Lauren Reynolds. We'll see, you know, is she going to take advantage of this a little bit? Is she going to test her legs, or is she going to be comfortable in the pack?
Well, you know, the rider from Theta has been on the front for the entire last lap, and you can tell by the way she's bobbing her head down. She's not feeling very good on the bike. She's not pedaling that fast, and the gap is still getting bigger.
Yeah, and Kappa, Gamma, and Teter just sitting on right now, not really giving her much help. That's DG, a team that's a lap down, kind of chasing, maybe trying to get to that lap back.
That's
by
right.
Catching up with KD. Well, this is exciting. KD's making a move, guys, and this is, you talked about it earlier. Lindsay told you she wasn't happy with the strategy last year, wants to make a race a little bit harder, and here they go.
That's right. I mean, she could take the race right here.
Last year was their best finish ever, second in this race. They lost one of their best sprinters, Lauren Zimba.
Sure, his brother rides for ATO, so there's a lot of family connections. Once you see this race for the first time, you just want to be a part of it. And I know her brother Steve Zimba rides for ATO.
Well, she's really pushing it, and she's put a considerable gap on the rest of the pack.
You know, Lindsay's got about an 8-second gap, and the riders behind her are starting to get together and work together and collaborate. But I think Lauren is really taking an opportunity here to put some pressure on the field, and if she can use some of the riders that are in front of her, you know, some of these kind of stragglers at this point, to leapfrog her way away from the main peloton, she's got a real opportunity here.
Sure, and that's Jackie Moeller on the bike for Teter. They're going to have to try to pull the leader back. What you'll see, obviously Teter, Kappa Gamma, and Theta are going to have to work together to really catch KD. So Dylan, we're working together. What's the strategy to get the other riders to pull through and to make sure it's smooth?
Well, you know, the hope is that everybody's smart enough to realize that if they don't all work together, that this race could be over for them. And the other issue is that now we're seeing some of the other girls leaping off the front and trying to bridge that gap by themselves instead of being collaborative. They're just going to take advantage of the opportunity.
Judd, it goes back to, you said the Theta rider looked a little bit tired earlier, and that's Brittany Mahoney. She has a ton of strength, but right now it doesn't look like she's being assertive or taking the lead. And Kappa Gamma is really comfortable just sitting on the front as well, not really going that hard. So as a result, KD's opened up an entire straightaway lead right now.
Well, yeah, and not only that, but you know, we see Theta now is trying to jump across.
There goes Brittany.
And you see that the Teter rider's just glued to her wheel. Doing an exchange there by Cycledelics. Unfortunately, they're so far behind now.
Well, Theta's coming in for an exchange, so Kappa Gamma is going to have to take it on their own. Here comes Theta, the team in white. They're going to get Brittany off the bike. It looks like Liz Pilata hopping on.
Liz Pilata will hop on. She's a junior from Andover, Maryland. Andover, Massachusetts.
Dave Jordan must have wanted to get, Dave Jordan being their coach, wanted to get a fresh rider out there and trying to shut down this Kappa Delta attack.
We're through 63 laps here at Bill Armstrong Stadium on the campus of Indiana University. It's the 20th running of the women's Little 500, and right now it is Kappa Delta pushing, and they've got a substantial lead.
Right now, Kappa Delta, all they're thinking is just go as fast as you can.
And as a result, the fun thing about being aggressive is you don't know what's going to happen. Wrecks could happen behind you. Other teams could fall off. At the end of the race, maybe there won't be 4, maybe there'll be 2. But something positive is going to happen for your team if you're aggressive.
Well, you can see Kappa Delta with a substantial lead. The DG team that is right behind them is a lap down. And then you've got last year's winner, Kappa Gamma.
So it looks like Kappa Gamma and Theta are now off the front of the field and are trying to work together to get up to.
They're trying to bridge, and this is when it becomes chaos, right? It's just strung out. The riders aren't together. You'll see exchanges, and this is kind of the fun thing about Little 5.
Well, you know, Kappa Gamma didn't have a very good exchange there. And I think, you know, what's interesting is that Kappa Delta is going to take advantage of that. She's off the front. She's got about a 10 or 15-second gap. And behind her, what's left of the field is just blowing apart.
Yeah, it's so much fun to watch because I know how hard it hurts for them right now. I mean, they're giving it all they have because they're solo, they're on their own, and they're just trying to close down the gap on the rider in front of them.
And how will your strategy, your race strategy, as you plan it out, change as the laps start to click off and we've got 35 left?
Well, it's going to depend who's around you, and it's always dynamic. That's the fun thing about bike racing, especially Little 5. It's always going to change. But Katie, they're going to have to try to keep this lead, and what you see happening is the other teams are just kind of deteriorating. They're not able to stay on each other's wheels.
Well, you know, just on that last lap, both Kappa Delta and Theta did an exchange, so they have two fresh riders, basically. The Kappa Delta girl is out there going full gas. We have a fresh Theta rider. She's going to try to bridge across. I mean, you know, it's now or never.
It looks like Julie Panzicu's on the bike for Kappa Delta from Granger, Indiana, and she talked about the series events. Though they did well and they were second on the pole, what they wanted was just a chance to compete.
Well, you know what's interesting also is that we're looking at the Kappa Delta rider who's off the front. She has a considerable gap, and she's coming up on lapped traffic. Jason, is that good or bad?
Well, it's good because sometimes you can get a little draft, and we saw Hans do that in the men's race a lot last year. She didn't take any draft there. She went right by him. What we like to see from an official perspective is those lapped teams move to the outside, right, and let Katie move forward on the inside. That'll really help her out. But this is amazing. See, the interesting thing is she's really not gaining that much ground, right? She has a quarter lap. She's had a quarter lap for a couple laps now. So they're out there on their own, whereas Teter, Theta, and Kappa Kappa Gamma are together with DG kind of working together. Here comes the Teter exchange. Good enough, right? Next rider's going to get back in there with the group.
And that's Sarah Ricci, who's jumped on the bike, and she's got a lot of ground to make up.
Yeah.
I bet Teter is really going to rely on Sarah right now to use that power to get back across, because she's the one that set the fastest lap. She's the one that came out here in qualifications and proved that she's the strongest rider. So if they want to get back in this race, now is the time to use Sarah.
And guys, what I thought was interesting, just talking to Sarah Ricci earlier in the week, she is not the tallest or the biggest woman out here. She was the fastest based on ITTs, but she said because of that, she works harder because she sees bigger competitors.
Very, very interesting. I know she's a confident rider, and I think she should be. She's proven that she deserves that.
She was funny. She talked about changing her nutrition to try and make sure that she was in the best shape possible. And if she has an opportunity for a snack, she'll sit down with a loaf of bread, and she'll knock down about a quarter of it.
That would not be the low-carb diet.
That's definitely some carbo loading. So we see the Theta rider looking around saying, come on, give me, you know, are we out of this race or are we just going to give up? We got to work together. And she's not getting a lot of help, but at this point in the race, it's now or never. We've got about 40 laps to go. They'll make that 30. Teter's going to do another exchange.
And that's just to try and get some sprints going from these riders, or if they do exchange, and it doesn't look like they are.
Katie's really dangling right now, right? So the leader's out there working hard and dangling. They haven't turned this lead into more than about a quarter of a lap. No, not even a quarter of a lap, half of a straightaway.
That's right. And Kappa Delta is definitely burning up some matches right now with this move, but man, it makes for great racing, and it's just so amazing to see the girls race so aggressively like this.
It's fun to watch, and there's so many advantages to being out front. You know, the chance of wrecking goes down because you have an advantage and you're on your own. And so often many good things happen, right? Because you'll see other packs form. Perhaps you can get into another pack and really, accelerate that lead.
That's right.
And guys, it looks like Sarah Ricci has made up some ground on the rest of the pack. Now she's just got to try and track down the Kappa Delta rider.
So what the coaches have to start thinking about right now is, what are we going to do when we catch the Kappa Delta rider?
And how are we going to catch?
Yeah, well, the assumption is we're going to catch her, but what are we going to do when we catch her? Because that's really, I think that's going to be the springboard that the winner is going to use to win this race today.
I see that lead open up a little bit. That's a full straightaway now with Lindsay back on the bike. Again, really one of their strong seasoned riders.
Theta going for a bike-to-bike exchange to try and get back in this.
And you could see the Kappa Delta rider coming up on lap traffic, and even though they might be going a little slower than she is, she can use them as a little bit of a momentary draft.
Look at that face, Dylan. What does that face tell you?
That, it was the House of Pain face.
she sees victory and she's going for it, right?
That's right.
And actually, when you see the House of Pain face, it looks like she's inflicting more pain on the competitors right now than she's really feeling herself.
Well, it looked like she didn't really get a lot of help from anybody there. Everybody kind of moved out of the way, and she's back on the front again. But, you know, she's just got to bury her head and go for it at this point. There's no looking back.
It's a tough thing about the teams that are a lap down because you don't really feel that comfortable with them, right? I mean, they're a lap or two down for a reason. They've wrecked. So you don't want to sit behind them too long. Interestingly, they're with Alpha Phi now, which is also a good team, the purple team. So maybe they can get some work from the Alpha Phi team to help them.
Well, not only that, you know, she's out of sight, out of mind. She's a full straightaway ahead of the lead pack. And there's a saying, you know, when you don't see the rider that you're trying to chase, all of a sudden you lose some of your motivation. You know, you don't see that person right there in front of you saying, okay, just keep going hard. We're almost going to catch her. She's out of sight now.
It looks like Jackie Moeller from Valparaiso, Indiana, is on the bike. This is only her second Little 500.
And she's for Teter, right? Team in green?
Pardon me, Teter.
Okay.
My mistake. Lindsay Mank is on the bike from Fort Wayne, and this is her third Little 500. But it'll be her last because she's a senior.
You're really using that experience right now, using that race experience to know how she wants to make this race. Being that she wants to make this race off the front, you know, being aggressive.
She is actually an entire half a lap up at this point.
Amazing. And really, I think this comes together. Again, their coach coached ATO last year, and ATO lapped the pack. And so now what you see is you see KD being aggressive with that half-lap lead.
The other thing that seems to be evident about the race, we've seen crashes, penalties. That's what's eliminated some teams. It's almost like survival through the 100 laps, and we've gone through 75 now.
Yeah, very much so. Race of attrition.
You know, we see the lead pack here. They're riding side by side. They've lost all their morale. They've got their heads sunk. They're trying to do these exchanges. I think they've lost.
And you're going to see a lot of high fives in the pit now for Lindsay after she did that awesome set, getting a half-lap lead. And really, that's a beautiful thing about the Little 500, right? All the Kappa Delta house, they're out there supporting their team, supporting their sisters, cheering them on.
You know, Jason, my cup just blew over, and that's not a good sign. That is not good for the Kappa Deltas because we can see the start-finish banner starting to blow. And if she's going to be out there all by herself and her jersey flapping in the wind, that's going to make it harder for her.
Well, at that point, do you try and get in with some of the lapped traffic, or can you afford that?
Exactly. I really think that they'd like to get some work out of Alpha Phi right now. Alpha Phi needs to make up a lap or make up some ground. You know, they're still looking for a good finish, so work together. Now right Cycledelics, the team in blacks, together with Kappa Delta. So those are three good teams to work with there, helping KD build on that half-lap lead.
You know, and I wouldn't be surprised if a team like Cycledelics said, you know what, we had a bad day, we crashed. It's not likely that we're going to get back on the lead lap. Let's help somebody out. Maybe there's a little bit of collaboration going on there. Maybe the coaches are down in the pits talking to each other, trading beer cards for later tonight.
Interestingly enough, I know Cycledelics doesn't want Teter to win. They have a little bit of a rivalry from what I understand. So it's questionable, but look for Cycledelics to maybe help KD, and obviously they want to gain some ground back as well.
Well, Cycledelics was one of the favorites. They qualified third today. They have Kim Lobig, the senior, and Pam Lobig, the junior, and they thought that this was going to be one of their years. Their 8th all-time. Last year they were 5th. That was their best finish since '88.
And just because they're not in contention, they're still out there competing, and they're not going to back down, and they're going to try to have the best day that they can. And that may mean an 8th or a 10th, but you know, you don't want to have an embarrassment. And this is when it all comes together. So Cycledelics still out there riding hard.
You know, we see both the Theta team and the Teter team doing exchanges right now, and I think that's because their coaches recognize that the girls have lost morale, and you got to put somebody in there fresh, or this race is over. We've got roughly 20 laps to go, and if they don't get this race back together right now, it's over.
And one of the things to keep in mind, we've got 21 laps left. With this track and these bikes, if a crash happens, it can completely change the face of the race.
Absolutely right. With dry conditions, tough track conditions, a wind, anything can happen. KD's trying to limit all that, right, by being off the front and just riding so hard right now.
Absolutely. You know, as Katie's, what she's trying to do is maximize her lead, but at the same time, like you said, Jason, stay out of trouble. She's coming in here to do an exchange.
You know,
the whole team is pumped up. We're going to see everybody jumping up and down, high fives all around, like you said. Look, she's just spent from a huge effort.
Looks like Lauren Reynolds, who's jumping on the bike. 20 laps to go. in this 100-lap race. Just over 25 miles for the 20th Women's Little 500.
Team number 4, riding in second place.
And look, Lauren looks really good on the bike, nice and fluid. She's got her head's straight ahead. Shoulders aren't rocking very much. She's got a good pedal stroke. I think she's really feeling good today.
Yeah, you can see with that single gear, you know, one speed, you see them move up in the saddle. You can tell when they're really moving because their feet start moving faster. They're up in the saddle, and that's what we've seen a lot out of KD.
We just showed you the leaders a moment ago, but the distance between first and second is considerable. But it looks like, guys, that some of the riders, it looks like the Theta rider is trying to make a move.
You think right now it's now or never. With 19 laps to go, it's really time to pull this lead back. It's time to give it all you can. Looks like Theta, I saw the tongue out that time around. It could mean tired or she's coming out for an exchange.
Well, you know, Theta's, you know what's going on right now is that they're all panicking. All the girls that are not in the lead, you know, not with the leaders are panicking and they're not working together. If 3 or 4 of them would get together and just do 10 solid laps, they would bring the Kappa Delta team back, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Right now it looks like Kappa Delta is ready for a bike-to-bike exchange. And guys, when it comes to the exchanges, this most of the time because there are different types of riders, different body types?
Yeah, you know, I think it's just the size difference is just too great, so they have to use a different bike.
Teter will make an exchange as well.
What's interesting about exchanges, a lot of times you'll see these 3 chase teams, you know, Theta, Teter, and Kappa Kappa Gamma, they'll do exchanges at the same time because it's just convenient that way, and they're together, and it's a collective group to help catch.
Guys, if you're a sprinter for one of these teams, at what point on the laps do you jump on the bike to finish this thing off?
Now, you know, they're on. You gotta pull this back or the race is over.
She's telling the girls, you know, look, get out of my way. I'm racing for the win. And she's going to do everything she can to make sure that, you know, she doesn't want to get caught behind another crash, especially late in the race when the girls are tired. They start to shake their, you know, their shoulders hurt, their legs hurt. You know, there's no water bottles on the cages. They're probably thirsty.
That's more than a half-lap lead.
That's right. She's got almost 3/4, it looks like. And you can just see the look on these girls' faces. Their heads are kind of down, their shoulders are bobbing, they're not feeling very good.
But Jason, you think that this is a byproduct of some of the ATO coaching and what Hans Arneson did last year, lapping the men's field?
I think it's a byproduct of finishing second, wanting to be aggressive, you know, having a coach and a team that's confident they can do it. I think a lot of times it's the confidence in your, you know, aggressive strategy that's going to pay off. And it looks like, you know, they believe in themselves and they're really, really riding aggressive and strong today.
Well, you know what's interesting is that at that stage in the race when Lindsay appeared to be doing an exchange where she leapt off the front of that group of riders, and it was the fake exchange, she had that big gap, and all of a sudden Theta and the other riders who had been on the front all day long realized, oh, wait a minute, she's not doing an exchange, and oh, by the way, we're too tired. We've been on the front all day, we can't bring her back. And all of a sudden the gap just grew. And we had the front peloton of girls just completely blew apart and is scattered all over the track at this point.
Sometimes, guys, won't you see if a rider's going in for an exchange that other riders will respond by trying to up the pace?
Sure, yeah, you want to hop right on that wheel. You don't want someone to come in for that exchange.
Do you think in some sense then that was a miscalculation by some of the other teams that were at that point challenging?
Absolutely. Well, and here's what happens. The fake exchange, right? If you're thinking a girl's just going in for an exchange, you may let her go, right? If you don't think it's a real move. And that's what was so effective about what they did. You know, it looked like Lindsay opened up a little gap, and then she didn't bring the bike in, which was slow down. She did a couple more and built that lead. The next rider that got out, I think, was Lauren Reynolds. And she, you know, the plan was obvious. She wasn't going to just drift back in there with the group. She was going to accelerate that lead.
So guys, in the last couple laps, I've been noticing that the Cycledelic team and the Kappa Delta team are working together. So we have a collaboration out there, and my guess is what you were talking about, Jason, that the Teter team doesn't want, or the Cycledelics team doesn't want Teter to win, and this is their opportunity to make sure that they don't.
What are those indications that they are working together?
Well, you know, you see the 4 girls, that they're all in a line, and they're taking turns at the front. They're not side by side. and they're going fast.
You must have seen Cycledelics take a turn. They must have at least taken a turn on the front. Okay. And obviously, they're trying to have a good finish as well, and so they're trying to move up, and they're gaining ground on the other teams by just hanging with KD.
Yeah, absolutely. At this point, everybody else is racing for second place.
Kappa Delta coming in for an exchange.
And so is Cycledelics. We're really going to see these girls work together here. And Kappa Delta, they just did it both very, very good exchange. In fact, you saw the Cycledelic rider look over her shoulder and looking for the next Kappa Delta rider so that they could get back together and hook up and make that gap happen.
And with the amount of lead that they have, it's almost as though they've built themselves a cushion if a mistake for some reason occurs.
Oh, sure. And a mistake could be a dropped chain, could be an accident in front of you. There's so many things that can happen, but they're, again, alleviating really a lot of those unknown variables.
So we see the Cycledelics rider and the Kappa Delta rider working together. They're making their way through traffic. They're talking to each other. They're trading pulls. You'll see the Cycledelic rider jump right back in on her wheel. And then we see here the Thetas, they're just demoralized.
So Kappa Delta, been in the race 17 times, right? Finished in the top 10 6. They've placed as high as second last year and never won. So again, you see that team building. Been in the top 10 frequently, a good coach, a really strong tradition. Second, they're really going after that #1 slot today.
And Jason, for the teams that win, obviously you revel in the victory, but what does it mean for, in this case, a sorority or an independent cycling team or even a residence hall?
Well, it's huge. It means really, it means a lot more alumni support, right? People are going to get excited about the house. Look at all this neat stuff going on, right? We just won the Little 500 in front of 10, 12,000 people. Recruitment's going to be up, and the bike team's going to be strong for years to come. More girls are going to want to start riding when they see their team win. That's when the tradition really starts.
Judd, and also if you live anywhere near the Kappa Delta house tonight, I wouldn't plan on getting any sleep tonight.
10 laps to go in this 100-lap race. The 20th running of the Women's Little 500, sponsored by Granger. And right now, Kappa Delta has opened up a significant lead.
Yeah, Kappa Delta is almost over a half a lap up on him right now. Almost a full lap, actually.
91 laps have now been scored.
So I just realized that if Cycledelics catches Kappa, they're going to get 5th place here. So they're not only are they trying to help Kappa Delta, but they're also trying to secure their spot in the top 5.
Dylan, when I talked to some of the Kappa Delta riders, and they talked about spring break and heading down to Florida, they said it was almost entirely a work vacation. During the entire week, they took maybe 1 half day off, they said, to relax and work on their tans. But other than that, and right in the middle of it was a 90-mile ride on a Wednesday after leaving on a Saturday.
And on top of all that training, and not just the ride, but all the preparation that takes, to get your gear and all your equipment, and there's the before ride and the after ride, and it really takes up a whole day. But then on top of that, they're probably riding, midterms and exams, reading. It's really a full-time job being a student and an athlete, that's for sure.
The Teter team coming in for an exchange. 8 laps to go here at Bill Armstrong Stadium.
And really Teter is just trying to, they're racing for second, like I said, and it's between Teter and Theta at this point. And the whole field is completely blown apart. Teter's all by themselves, and at this point, with 8 laps to go, she's just got to put her head down and go for the race.
7 laps to go. Dylan, in talking to Sarah Ricci, who won ITTs, and she was on the pole sitter, she obviously took it seriously, but she said, I wanted to have fun during this competition.
Well, and I think that's a great strategy, because it's a great way to be prepared but not psych yourself out. You gotta show up to race day. You don't want to spend a bunch of nervous energy, whether it's before the race or during the race. And having that attitude is really something that you see among real big champions.
Kappa Delta coming right past the start-finish line, getting some instructions from their coaches in the pits. They're still working with Cycledelics with 6 laps to go.
Yeah, and you know, the Cycledelics and the Kappa Delta, Kappa Delta knows that Cycledelics wants to get 5th place, and so she's trying to also help. It's a really symbiotic, collaborative relationship going on right now out there. And that's what makes this race so unique. And it looks like Teter and Theta are really, you know, they're racing each other for 2nd right now. And in almost 6 laps, it's possible we could see Kappa Delta lap the lead group.
Kappa Delta, they have 2 people who've been experienced in this race. Lindsay Menk, this is her 3rd. Lauren Reynolds, her 2nd. But Dylan, they have 2 people who have never ride, Lauren McGee and Julie Panzik.
Yeah, you know, that really says something about the team itself and their ability to, you know, to bring a rookie into the organization and groom them and train them and show them how to win. And, you know, like Jason was saying, it's really going to help the Kappa Delta house attract, you know, talent, and that's why we see these dynasties that get built here at the school.
And to sort of follow up on that point and talk to some of the other riders, if they're on a team with a lot of young riders, Dylan, some of the riders have said, sometimes I lose myself because I'm so concerned with trying to teach some of the rookies on the team.
Well, you know, it's an interesting aspect of the Little 500 because it's not just about the one person winning the race. It really takes a whole team, and I think it's a great side effect of the Little 500 fever that starts for a lot of these students, you know, years in advance. You know, we heard one of the other girls talk about how she first heard of the Little 500 when she was a senior in high school, and here she is going to the University of Indiana, Bloomington. Thanks. You know, she's in the Little 500 right now, and it's just great to see how these riders are inspired. And you know, we come down with 4 laps to go, and you know the Kappa Delta's thinking about victory right now.
3 laps to go. We're right above the start-finish line, and you can see that the man who's waving the flags down there is about to grab the white one and then reach for the checkered. It's Kappa Delta with a sizable lead here at Bill Armstrong Stadium.
You know, and we can see the Cycledelic rider and the Kappa Delta rider still talking to each other, still trying to get that strategy. You know, are we good here? Should we keep going? You know, and really the most important thing right now is that they need to get out of that pack because it's really dangerous right there. You see them riding 3 or 4 wide. You know, these girls are tired. They've been racing all day. They don't know who's in what position. And it's really important that she just get out of there right away. And, you know, the other thing is that when you win a race solo, you want to win it solo. You want to be out there all by yourself. You want to post up, zip up the jersey, wave to the friends and family and crowd. And it's very likely that there could be a crash on the last lap or something like that. So she's got to get out of there.
Senior Lindsay Menk is on the bike. There are 2 laps to go.
You know, Judd, she's on the outside track where she's out of the groove right now, and it's a dangerous place to be. You can see all of the cinders from the track and how dusty it is, but she's doing the right thing right now by going to the front, and she's just going to take this race in style all by herself.
The white flag is down. This is the final lap for the leaders, of which there's essentially one. Kappa Delta moving through the field now on the back stretch. It has been a brilliant race for them from start, and they're now almost a half a lap from a finish.
And their whole pit's going crazy. Everybody's jumping down. We've got 100 girls from the sorority jumping up and waving flags, and here she comes for the finish.
For the first time in sorority history, Kappa Delta has won the women's Little 500.
And they're still racing. You can see, you know, we've got Theta. They're at the halfway point. Theta and Teter, they're going for 2nd right here.
Both of them are pushing along the back stretch.
Oh, and they're banging bars. This is great racing here. Theta's got it on the inside because she's got the groove, but Teter looks like they're going to be able to come around, and that's going to be close, and she's got it.
Sarah Ricci will finish 2nd, Kappa Theta 3rd.
What a great race. It's amazing that they didn't crash there. You know, they were banging their bars right up next to each other, right in the cinders. You could see all the dust flying. It's amazing they didn't crash.
They're still finishing up the last laps. Your winner today, Kappa Delta. For the first time in sorority history, they qualified 2nd with a time of 2 minutes, 39 seconds. This is their 17th Little 500. It is their first victory after finishing second last year and being on the pole last year, and the 7th time they have finished in the top 10. Dylan, I talked to Lindsay Menk before the race and I asked her, where's the celebration? She said it's going to be here.
That's right. It was on the last lap and it's going to be here for sure. You know, I think we just saw how race strategy can really play out and make a difference. You know, they stayed out of trouble the whole day. They stayed at the front but didn't use up too much energy. They waited for the right opportunity to make their move. They didn't have one individual that was a really great finisher, but they had a really strong team. And I think you saw it all play out because they had one rider do the attack, get the gap, but then it took all 4 girls to maintain that. I mean, they were out there for, what, 40 laps?
You can see the group in light blue celebrating behind the Kappa Delta pit. All the sorority sisters, family, and friends.
You know, for a lot of these girls, they're just happy to finish, and it's been a pretty amazing, you know, road to get here to this last lap, and they're just ecstatic. And even though they didn't win, they're going to walk away here with a memory of being a participant in the Little 500, and that's something that stays with a lot of these students for the rest of their lives, and they come back, and it's why it makes such an amazing alumni weekend. You can feel the energy in the air when you get here, and, you know, I can guarantee you 50 feet past the finish line, they're already thinking about next year.
And what a great start to the world's best college weekend.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Kappa Delta is celebrating, Teter second, Theta third. Guys did the Cycledelics finish 4th. They had to make up some considerable ground, and what took them out of the race was a penalty early on that they thought they had served for creeping under a yellow caution flag. They left early, had to go back, finish it up, and at that point could never get back in it.
Yeah, it just goes to show you how important it is to pay attention to the rules and really follow all of the regulations of the race. And it's really complicated, and that's why it takes a whole year of planning and training and preparation. But, you know, it was a lesson learned the hard way, and I guarantee you it won't happen again.
Jason Sonneborn is down with a victorious Kappa Delta team.
Well, it's loud down here, guys, but I'm here with Norm Hughes, the coach of the Kappa Delta team, and Lindsay Menk, who set all that up with the fake exchange. Did you have the fake exchange planned going into the race?
No, not at all. That was totally an accident. Like, not planned at all.
Well, you must have been feeling good because you opened up a huge gap today and kept it going.
I felt good, and I had my teammates and our coach with us, and it just all happened to work in our favor.
Norm, last year with the ATOs, you did something similar. Did this aggressiveness, you know, did that kind of spill over to this year?
It's all about instinct. We talk about all kinds of strategies, and it's just instinct. So when you got the situation to happen, you just go.
Lindsay, you've ridden in a couple little 500s. Have you ever felt anything like the emotion right now?
No, I've dreamed of it, and it's even better. This is amazing. I love it.
Well, good. Truly an incredible performance today from KD. Great job, Lindsay. Congratulations, Norm.
Thank you.
Well, Kappa Delta talking about one of the points that we felt was pivotal in the race, and they said it was a total accident.
Well, you know, I think it's a good point. It's all about being prepared for all the different possible scenarios and having the instinct. Okay, hey, we got a gap. Let's go for it. Let's go for it. Let's take a chance here. And you know, you got to risk losing in order to win a race, and that's what we saw out there with the Kappa Deltas.
They talked about instincts being a huge factor today, and they were a big factor. Kappa Delta winning its first women's Little 500 to start the world's greatest college weekend. An incredible race as they had a sizable lead against the rest of the field. There's the unofficial results. Kappa Delta first, Teter second in that last second sprint by Sarah Ricci. Kappa Alpha Theta third, Cycledelics finishing 4th, and Athena surviving a wreck early on to finish 5th. Stay with us when we return. We'll see the winners on the platform to receive their trophies and championship milkshakes. You're watching HDNet. You can see the celebrating being done by Kappa Delta. They have won today's 20th Women's Little 500 at Bill Armstrong Stadium. They qualified second. And Dylan, one of the things that we talked about was qualifying position, impact or lack thereof, and there's a difference between being fast and being skillful. They were both today.
They had the whole package, you know. They did everything that they needed to do to be prepared in all of the qualification events, and then they showed up on race day ready to win. And it's just great to see their energy, their emotion. You know, they had great pit position. They executed their exchanges really smooth. They didn't have any bad exchanges. They you know, this is how you win the Little 500.
It was flawless today. Let's send it down to the infield trackside for the award ceremony.
Kappa Alpha Theta, third place in this 2007 Women's Little 500. Your 2007 Little 500 runner-up team. Team number 1, Teter. The team members, Julie Beminista, Jackie Moeller, Lisa Murray, and Sarah Ricci. Teter, the runners-up for 2007. And in this 20th edition of the Women's Little 500, your 2007 champions, Kappa Delta, the corporate sponsor, Pizza Express, Lauren McGee from Dublin, Ohio, Lindsay Mank from Fort Wayne, Julie Panzica from Granger, and Lauren Reynolds from Evansville. IU Student Foundation President Elliot Chapman and IUSF Vice President Annie Abrams with the presentation of the flower lays and, of course, now the coveted Steak and Shake milkshakes to our winning team. Now the presentation by the William S. Armstrong family of the Martha Lee Armstrong Trophy to Kappa Delta. Tony Bierman of Borg Warner presents the Borg Warner Trophy to our champions. And there's Bill Armstrong Jr. with the presentation of the Martha Lee Armstrong Trophy. Dr. Bill Armstrong, now of Atlanta, Georgia. And now with the Borg Warner Trophy, Kappa Delta about to see that beautiful silver trophy where their names will be etched very soon. Matthew Ewing doing the honors, the racing director for IU Student Foundation. Next comes the Schwinn bicycle for our champions of 2007, Kappa Delta. The Schwinn bike to the champions.
Okay, guys, this is the first win for your house. What does it mean? Is it the start of a tradition?
It's the start of a tradition. I hope to come back and watch a lot more.
So Lauren, you know, a lot went into this preparation. Today was a huge day for you guys. What's going to happen next?
I guess start training for next year.
You think you have a strong team next year? It's going to keep going, isn't it?
Yeah, we're hoping to start a tradition of it, so.
We'll definitely build a strong one.
Yeah.
Definitely build a strong one.
If you were to credit anyone, you know, who would you credit for this win, and how did it come about?
Norm.
Your coach, Norm Hughes. Well, awesome job today, guys. You guys did terrific. Thank you.
Thank you.
A tremendous win. And Dylan, from start to finish, they were fast, they were skillful. We talked about the fake exchange, which they said was a complete accident, but they credited, as Jason just saw us just told us a moment ago, their coach was so pivotal in this victory today for Kappa Delta.
Absolutely. What we saw was a quintessential team win the Little 500. They did the preparation. They were united. They looked to their coach to give them guidance. They showed up prepared, and they showed up and they won.
You have been watching HDNet's exclusive high-definition coverage of the Women's Little 500. Join us again tomorrow for the 57th running of the Men's Little 500. Our coverage begins at 2 o'clock Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. The executive producer of HDNet and the producer of today's show has been Daryl Ewald. Directing our beautiful HD pictures today, skillfully done by Mike Sheehan. Feature producer, Johnny Galpin. HDNet remote engineering by Danny Neighbors and Eddie Martinez. Production manager, Angela Setagarvin. Thanks to the rest of our great crew here in Bloomington, and special thanks to the staff and students from Indiana University and the Student Foundation for all of their help. For my partners Dylan Casey and Jason Sonneborn, I'm Judd Surratt. Once again, the victorious team from the 2007 Women's Little 500, Kappa Delta, hoist the Borg-Warner Trophy.
You've been watching an exclusive high-definition presentation of HDNet.